their own revenue collections. There are problems even in terms of the conditional grants that we place from time to time. And all this needs to be audited afresh so that we are very sure in terms of how we are moving forward. As of today, Mr. Speaker, the cumulative amount of monies that have gone to counties, if you look at it, is beyond the budget of this year. We are beyond the 3 trillion, if you cumulatively look at the amount of money that has gone to the counties for the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, these things need to be looked at even if you are doing an issue with social audit. The Constitution allows, when there are difficulties in certain counties, when counties cannot perform certain functions properly, the Constitution allows interventions. And I think the government needs to look forward into this, because most of the counties where interventions are required are not coming out for those interventions. And I want to strongly believe there are counties that need to be supported properly such that we get to move this country forward, Mr. Speaker. There are counties that are doing so badly. Mr. Speaker, if you look at in terms of the budget processes, we are strictly following a budget process as a nation. But even as this parliament, look at what goes on in terms of budget cycles in counties. There is a problem. Here we are guided between February and April, and between February and May. There are processes. You are the BPS that runs on from February that guides the processes in terms of the targets, guides in terms of what is supposed to be looked at by every department. But what happens in the counties? Maybe some of these things are missing, and that's exactly why many counties are also missing out. We are saying that local authorities were collecting more revenue than the current county government. Why? This thing needs to be checked in terms of the exact reason why this is happening. So, and beyond that, Mr. Speaker, the targets that we are setting as a government or as a nation, we are talking about food, and I think I talked about this when I was contributing on the budget and appropriations. The problem is, if you look at even the issue of SDGs, how are we supposed to achieve this? 80% of the goals are placed in terms of the functions of the counties, but they don't get the equitable share in terms of resource towards those kind of functions, Mr. Speaker. So an audit is required, and I think this is the best time to do it when the new government is getting in place such that they are able to know exactly where do you place resources, which counties needs to be intervened on, what is it that we are supposed to do such that the country moves forward, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Gakuya.
Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also thank you to give me this opportunity to contribute upon this allocation of revenue to our counties. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support, and I want to emphasize that, Mr. Speaker, what we need from our counties is that now that we transmitted from the former de facto local authority to the current devolved government, Mr. Speaker. Well, the reason why we devolved that system is purely to make sure that at least the service is near to the people. Mr. Speaker, I understand that in fact, as much as we talk about the pending bill, Mr. Speaker, there is an increment of high magnitude in pending bills in our counties. And Mr. Speaker, you realize that most of the service providers within these counties, Mr. Speaker, are our local domestic people. And Mr. Speaker, it's a very ironical to see that at least our people are totally suffering when they did supply, when they did contract with these counties, and they are unable to get their dues in good time. And you realize that most of these service providers are ending up on what we call auctions by those banks that have been led them their service money. Mr. Speaker, it will be prudent to where these resources, when they get back to the counties must differentiate that the reason why the devolution is there is to service to the people. But you realize almost each and every county takes its money to current expenditure, and you realize that issue to do with the development is quite minimal. Mr. Speaker, I would urge that even what we call liabilities during the transition time, you realize most of these liabilities files were kept into shelves. And Mr. Speaker, those are services who have been delivered by Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, it's a high time that we must make sure that the counties are doing the right things in the right time, and once they get this money, they do execute and make sure that they pay those spending to Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also it's a responsibility of these counties to take charge on the areas of solid waste management. And you realize, Mr. Speaker, and especially the biggest dump site in the city is purely under in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, but you realize that nothing is happening there, and it is always toxic which is getting to our people, Mr. Speaker. Even our ecosystems, which are downstream, are also suffering, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my point of order is back to 95, so that we go to the next business, which is more crucial, on equalization fund. So, will I be in order to call the mover to reply?
Members, like I said, on these matters, I don't have a vote. And nothing in standing orders, our standing orders stop anybody from their seat to rise as many times as they want on 95. And so, is it the move of the House that we call the move of reply? Yes. Honorable Lachi, as listening from assistant and quoting at standing order 95, as claimed the move will now be called upon to reply. Will those of that same opinion say aye? Aye. And will those of contrary opinion say nay? 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I really want to thank all the members who have taken part in debating this very crucial bill, the county allocation of revenue bill. And Honorable Speaker, all the contributions from members have been very, very informative, and especially guiding on how we can polish up our counties and devolution. Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Are we voting on this? Honorable members, I therefore put the question that the county allocation of revenue bill, Senate Bill number 16 of 2023, be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will those of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 11, the Equalization Fund Appropriations Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2023, second reading.
Mover. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Equalization Fund Appropriations Bill, that is Senate Bill number 3 of 2023, be read for the second time. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank all the members of the Budget Committee and all the other members who have been involved in deliberating on this matter. Honorable Speaker, this is a bill that is appropriating money or monies that are to be used in regards to the Equalization Fund. And Honorable Speaker, across the country there are around 34 counties that benefit from this fund. Honorable Speaker, some definitely benefit much more because they need to be uplifted to be at par with the other counties. But also, Honorable Speaker, it is not just a matter of a pure county issue. Equalization fund goes to specific areas. And that is why you find in counties that ordinarily will not be receiving or drawing monies from equalization fund, having pockets of areas that actually draw money from equalization fund. Honorable Speaker, among the highest beneficiaries of this fund is Turkana County. Honorable Speaker, Wajir County is there, and many more. But even in other counties, for example, in areas like Bomet, there are pockets of areas that benefit from equalization fund. Even from my own county, Muranga, there is an area called Ithanga, represented by Honorable Wakiri Moreu. Honorable Speaker, which is a pocket of an area that needs to be uplifted, Honorable Speaker, even as we consider other areas to benefit from the equalization fund. Honorable Speaker, because I can read the mood of the House, that members would want to contribute to this motion, and because I've had other time to contribute to other motions earlier before, Honorable Speaker, I do not want to take much more time so that the time available can be spread across other members. And Honorable Speaker, because we are a House that upholds even the respect for our women leaders, Honorable Speaker, I want to give the opportunity of seconding to a very able Member of Parliament for Laikipia County, who is doing a great job in Laikipia, Honorable Jane Kagere.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I rise to second this very crucial bill. First, Honorable Speaker, allow me to thank the Chairman for the Budget Committee and member for Kiharo constituency for giving me this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, that's an indication of great leadership and mentorship at its best. Honorable Speaker, in regards to the Equalization Fund, I want to appreciate the great minds that thought about it, because it is a well thought out idea, considering that in this country we have areas that are more equal than others. We have areas where people wake up to a running water tap, and we also have areas where people have to walk 17 kilometers to fetch a pail of water. Honorable Speaker, this is a bill that needs the support of this whole House, because considering that I'm a county MP and Laikipia being a beneficiary amongst the 34 counties, it is a bittersweet experience for me, because sometimes I wake up to a ward in my county where people have tarmac road. I move to another area where we have to clear bushes for us to even make our way through in those particular areas. Honorable Speaker, because this fund was created to provide basic services to the marginalized areas, and we are talking of services of water, roads, electricity, and even health facilities. Honorable Speaker, I believe we all need to remember that when we are enjoying some facilities like electricity, there are people who may have never come across electricity. When we talk about health facilities, we have our women delivering on the road or even at home because of access to health facilities, and maybe them being very far off from where these women are. Honorable Speaker, it is well to note that by the year 2019, 29 billion had not been released from the Equalization Fund, and this is money that the people in these particular areas are in dire need of. Currently, we are talking about 13 billion, which I believe will go to help these particular areas. In Laikipia in particular, we are expecting around 160 million, which will go to 5 out of my 15 wards, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, with the immediate execution of this money, our people will be able to enjoy better facilities, and of course, even ourselves as a country, we will be able to benchmark ourselves. Let's not forget the Equalization Fund was implemented from the promulgation of the new constitution in the year 2010. That tells us it has been 13 years in the running. 65% of the time is already gone. What do we have to show? Are our people accessing electricity? Are our people accessing water? Are they accessing health facilities? Are they accessing roads? That is the big question we have to ask ourselves, Honorable Speaker. Though this House in its wisdom is allowed to extend that time from the period of 20 years, allow us to judge ourselves first and ensure that we implement what our people have elected us to do. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I second the bill. Thank you.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2023, be read a second time.
Honorable Speaker, in the spirit that we get more people to contribute to this bill, and the fact that we are almost coming to the end of this sitting, I propose that we do 4 minutes or 3 minutes per person, so that we have many more people contribute to this very important bill. I beg to move, Honorable Speaker.
Members, it's your House, and the Honorable Baya has moved under Standing Order 97, and so I'll propose a question that debate on this bill be limited to 3 minutes for each member debating. I put the question. I therefore put the question that debate on this bill be limited to 3 minutes per member contributing. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. And those of the opinion say nay. The member for Tinderet.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak onto this bill, Senate bill, and I want to thank also the framers of the Constitution for having thought it wise that it is important to have an equalization fund that will bring other parts of the country to the equal level with other parts. Honourable Speaker, you'll realize that since we attained independence in this country, there are certain regions in this country that lack basic social amenities, such as hospitals, roads, electricity, schools, and many other amenities, Honourable Speaker. It is therefore in the wisdom of the framers of our Constitution of 2010 that we need to have a fund that actually will be only be meant for areas which are actually least developed from other areas. Honourable Speaker, as the Budget and Appropriation Committee Chair has just put it, the areas mentioned are mainly the ASAL region, pockets of poverty, or pockets of poverty spread across all our counties. If you go to areas such as Northeastern, you go to areas such as...
Honourable members, allow them to contribute without interruption.
If you go to regions such as Coast, Northeastern, parts of Rift Valley, parts of Central Kenya, parts of Nyanza, and many other parts of this country, Honourable Speaker, you realize that there are a number of areas where they are completely inaccessible. We have very poor roads, we have no electricity, we have no schools, we have no hospitals, and the likes. This fund actually endeavors or moves to ensure that such regions are brought to the same level as other areas of this country. Areas within major cities of this country, Honourable Speaker, like Nairobi, areas surrounding Nairobi and other regions are far much developed than other areas. If you go to areas such as Mandera, such as Kisumu, and even parts of Nandi County, such as my constituency Tinderet, it is actually least developed. So, Honourable Speaker, I want to support this bill that actually a lot of funds needs to be disbursed to counties so that they can actually have enough money to bring other regions with a lot of pockets of poverty to equal levels of development. I support. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Lagos Songa.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for this opportunity, and let me begin by saying that I support this, this motion, the Equalization and Appropriations Bill 2023. Honourable Speaker, in supporting this bill, I would like to say that, one, we have just 7 years before the end of this equalization policy, and yet we have not been able to allocate the required resources in full. So far, we have only allocated as a House about 26 billion, and we have appropriated 12 billion only. So, Honourable Speaker, out of 54 billion which this House should have been allocated by now, we have a large deficit. So, the first point I want to say is that this House must endeavour to allocate all these resources to this fund. Secondly, Honourable Speaker, the marginalisation policy which is in place is not very comprehensive, because there are many sections of this country that have not been factored in this policy. An example is in my constituency, Honourable Speaker. I do not benefit completely from this policy, yet have pockets of areas that should be considered as marginalized. So I would like to urge that the next policy which is going to be in place must ensure that it is comprehensive and that it has captured all the areas in this country that deserve these resources. Otherwise, this fund is very, very important. And I was going through a report of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on poverty. And Honourable Speaker, it is very sad that large sections of this country are still very, very poor. From Turkana, Mandera, all those areas. I think it's important that we endeavour to allocate sufficient resources so that these sections can catch up with the other parts of the country. We want to we need to have a country that is fair, that every every section of the country contributes to the overall development of the country. Because if we continue to have a country that is really marginalized, where a large section of the country is not contributing to our overall development, then we will never achieve the aspirations we have as a country of, being a developed country. So thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. I support.
Member for Laikipia East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I really want to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, it's important that it addresses areas that are, let's say, less advantaged or marginalized in one way or the other. However, Mr. Speaker, there are issues that must be brought out clearly of these targeted areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have heard and already seen that this fund is operating in 37 counties. But the way the formula came out, Mr. Speaker, is a bit worrying. Because we have to look again on the formula of allocating these funds and the methods being used. Because again, you even look at those counties that these funds are available, like Laikipia, I agree with my colleague, is that out of 15 wards, 5 of them are benefiting. But if you look at the neighborhood, almost 10 of them qualify. Even in the neighboring constituency, that is Kieni constituency, already the area is as dry as Saburu, as dry as any other ASO area in this country. Look at areas like Bori constituency in Meru and other parts of Meru, where that these areas, the fact that they neighbor counties or constituencies that well endowed, their climate conditions are good, they are mistaken to have the same conditions with those areas. It is as mistaking people who live in Kibera because they are neighbors of Muthaiga and think that these people are as rich as those people living in Kibera. We need to look at isolated areas.
The Honorable Kiunjuri, Kibera and Muthaiga, I don't think they are neighbors, are they?
No, Madare and, you look at people living in Madare and mistake them with people living in Muthaiga, or those people living in Kibra mistake them with people living in Langata and Karen area. Those cases must be isolated so that even Nalobai, but not by the virtue of being thought to have been in areas that are conducive, which is very different from the actual assessment when you come to poverty levels in those constituencies and those parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, I support.
The member for Marsabit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important bill. And the bill on equalization fund appropriation bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, I thank God that I have gotten the opportunity to speak on this, because I come from one of the marginalized areas, and that is Marsabit, where we have been left out for many years in terms of development, and our area has suffered because of lack of basic needs that this bill will take care of. We have had challenges with water and sanitation, and one time we spoke to our president and we told him, if we can solve the problem of water in Marsabit, 80% of our problem has been solved. And if this equalization fund or bill would have been passed and appropriated 10 years ago, I'm sure we would have made some changes, or we would have transformed some of our counties that have been suffering. And Mr. Speaker, water is life, water is everything, and even in our schools, the few schools that are there, most of the time, the education system is interfered with because of lack of water and sanitation, because we have no roads that can get to we have no service roads. Yes, it is true that the Great North Road has been, was done during President Kibaki's time, but still many roads many surface roads have not been done, and this fund would have taken care of that. Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want to sit before I speak about health. Health concerns each one of us, and in our hospitals, even the few hospitals and dispensaries that are there, we do not have enough equipment. We have no facilities that can help. The distance between one hospital to the other. Imagine of a woman that is maybe having her labor pains, and she has to travel for 350 kilometers to get to the hospital. So once these funds will be released, I'm sure many people will benefit. And it is my prayer that proper use and accountability will be put in place so that we can be good stewards of the funds and resources that God has given us. Marsabit suffers again, and many other counties that have been left behind because of electricity. In 21st century, many of our homes have no power. And even if in my county we produce the Loyangalani, the Turkana wind power,
Honorable Lachi. Members, it is 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
4 minutes, and I intend to give 6 more, so don't worry about what you see on the board there. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support also the equalization fund bill number 3 of the Senate. Mr. Speaker, just to say a few things and to just put it together with the report that we had just finished, that I want to appreciate the Budget Committee under the leadership of Honorable Dindi Nyoro, the chair, to just say thank you and to look at what the Senate has given us and to say that it is important for us also in this House to really push the Senate to give us a bill that they are able to push the counties that Kenya revenue can collect for them revenue. So that we start looking 10 years down the line, we're going 15, Mr. Speaker, it is important for us now to come out from the word marginalized. It is important to come and now start saying we have still our counties that are having challenges in terms of a few of the functions that were devolved, water, electricity, and others, and roads. But saying and appreciating Kenyans who have paid tax to say the monies that have gone to counties, we need now to see improvement. We cannot allow them to continue like this. 10 years, $1 trillion shillings has gone to different counties, Mr. Speaker, and yet today our citizens are still crying. The same cry they were crying 60 years ago. It is not fair. It means we are mismanaging our resources. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, even when I look at the equalization fund, it is important to appreciate Nairobi, Kibra, Mathare, Korokosho, Kawangware, for us to remove our young people from that helplessness, that as leaders just use them to run all over. It is because we must ensure we bring now the resources in those few areas. They are marginalized and they need to see change, dignity in their life, dignity in their children. We must change, Mr. Speaker, on how we look at Kenya. And therefore, as I support, I tell the Senate, it is time we have one authority to collect for us revenue in this country. And the money will still go to their accounts and they will be able to be told, you have these resources, the national government can add you this. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak to Equalization Fund. The Honorable Speaker, our Constitution under Article 204 provides for Equalization Fund. And under Article 204, sub-article 2, provides that there is need to have these funds to address issues of water, electricity, roads, in marginalized areas. Mr. Speaker, it is 10 years down the line, and it's less than 10% of this money has been utilized. And we are seeking, Mr. Speaker, that as we debate and also approve this bill, Mr. Speaker, on disbursement of these funds must be disbursed in full. From the time this constitution was promulgated up to now. Mr. Speaker, the criteria again to which the counties were identified that these are marginalized counties, Mr. Speaker, some of us, we have reservations. Because even, I don't know how the counties were chosen, because the Constitution provides for marginalized areas, not counties. And you will find that when you come to a place like Elgeyo Marakwet County, only one constituency, not even one constituency, about 2 or 3 wards, Mr. Speaker, are good access to roads and electricity. The entire place, there is no water, there is no roads. Mr. Speaker, we are seeking that even as we process this bill, Mr. Speaker, we would want that all the areas of the country be looked into, and to make sure that, like the Honorable Alaj is saying, in areas, there is some areas in capital city here in Nairobi, which has been marginalized. They don't have water. But it's not factored in. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to relook again afresh the criteria, how these areas were identified. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I want to support.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the Equalization Fund, the drafters of our Constitution thought it very wise. And in the first policy, this was supposed to take care of 14 counties, but subsequent policies added a number of pockets which were also marginalized, and now it covers up to 34 counties in the specific areas. Mr. Speaker, the most important part is that this fund has a sunset clause of 20 years. We've already utilized, not utilized, we have already spent, already far behind by 13 years. We're left with 7 years. The most unfortunate part is that this money has not been released to be used for what it was supposed to do. You can imagine now we are discussing this bill, which is supposed to appropriate 2021, 2022 budget that was passed. We have 7 years to go, and we have only utilized 25% of the Equalization Fund. If this is not utilized, what does it mean? It goes back to Treasury and allocated somewhere else. We understand that there are issues concerning identification of projects, procurement issues. Those are administratives. But the most important part is that we want Equalization Fund to work for the people that we represent. Even if it's going to be handled by counties as per the current regulations, we still have reservations about it. But the most important is this money must be released by Treasury immediately so that it can serve the people in those marginalized areas. Right now it's covering 34 counties. As has been said, there are a number of pockets. And I'm sure the coming policy, as the Honorable Boyna said, will address other smaller pockets which have issues of marginalization. But the most important part is that let these funds be appropriated, let these funds be used properly, and to the counties, please ensure that these monies released to you are properly utilized, accounted for, and that it serves the good people of those counties that are marginalized. I support.
No, it was me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While standing to support the motion or the bill on equalization fund, I think we have missed the point or the intention which was meant for this equalization fund. It looks like it's no longer an equalization fund. The idea behind this, when the drafters of the Constitution were coming up, was to bring up the 14 counties that they found at the time that are marginalized. This fund is less than 20 billion shillings. People here, or members of parliament, are talking as if this is the money that is supposed to address the issues or the shortcomings of the country or the constituency or the areas that they represent. This fund was meant for
14 counties in the first place, to bring us, those who felt at the time that we are marginalized, at par with the rest of the country. You are talking about pockets. You are talking about Kibera and Karen comparing that. The national government or the government for the last 60 years should have addressed the issues of Kibera and bring them at par with the rest of the Nairobi County. My understanding of this bill, or rather the equalization fund, was to address the issues of the 14 counties. While I support what is on the table today, I think we should go back. As the Speaker of the Assembly yesterday said, the intention was for the 14 counties, not pockets. So, and as a result of that, it has watered down the allocations we are going to get the 14 original counties. Everybody who comes here and as a member of parliament, if he says his constituency is supposed to be addressed, I think that fund will not address the original intention. So my contribution is that while we support this, we should go back to the 14 original counties to address the marginalized areas that were considered at the time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Hii pesa ya usawazishaji kutoka kwa jina lenyewe inaonyesha ni kusawazisha. Lakini vile mambo yashatokea, afadhali shari kuliko shari kamili.
Honourable members, I've just given 4 this side in a row. 4 in a row without this side. Go ahead.
Afadhali shari kuliko shari kamili. Muhimu hii pesa ije, hata kama niyo kidogo, tumepata itumike vizuri, na hii pesa muda wake sije ukaisha kabla haijatumika. Sisi miradi yetu ikija kule iwe miradi ambayo itakumbuka na hata vizazi vinazokuja. Sio pesa hii iende kama kuna sehemu zingine kama Lamu Mashariki. Wakati wa nyuma iliwekwa pesa hii ya usawazishaji kwa barabara, lakini hiyo barabara tukitafuta leo hakuna, na ilitumika zaidi ya milioni 120. So tunaomba pesa hii iangaliwe vizuri, iwe siku zote ifanywe, haipelekwi kwa sababu ya mambo ya usalama. Lakini ikiwa tutasema siku zote na ni pahali ni Kenya, iambiwe hakuna usalama ndio miradi haitoenda, sitabaki vile vile. Na basi kama ni hivyo waamue watugawanye watupeleke upande mwingine wa Somalia. Au kama ni Kenya miradi ifike kule kule nako, hata kama ni Boni Forest miradi nao ifike. Asante Bwana Spika.
And use it here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I come from Isiolo South. I agree with my friends here that this equalization fund was meant for the 14 counties. There are counties which are fully marginalized. Fully marginalized. It's not a pocket, it's not a portion. Fully marginalized. And this was meant, when the drafters of the Constitution talked about this matter, when they inserted in the Constitution, they thought about those 14 counties. Now the whole thing, every other day, every other year, every other successive regime thinks of, why don't you add others? We have not, our life has not been changed up to today. The 14 counties which have been marginalized, and is still being marginalized in Kenya up to today. There is no changes, we have not gotten any change, and what we talked of a reprieve was this equalization fund. And that equalization fund, up to today, it may be our problem, but it's majority who wins. That's why we are doing what we are doing. So what we are saying is, Mr. Speaker, I think we have to go back again and see that, are we marginalized? Are we attending to the marginalization, the marginalized countries? Or are we talking about pockets of country, pockets of places, pockets of areas? When my county, which I come from, Isiolo, is totally marginalized, we can call it totally marginalized, and it has already been said. So while supporting this one, we have to think twice again, Germany, that
animal farm should not be applied in Kenya. That others are equal, while others are more equal than others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with your wisdom that you have given as many people as possible, regardless of the shortest time. I stand on under 95, Honorable Speaker, whereby I wish, because of the mood of the House, mover be now called upon to reply.
A good question from the Honorable Kukose there. How did the Honorable Kingara get the mood of the House? But it's not for me to decide that question, it's for you to decide that question. The Honorable Kingara, as reason on his seat and moved that the mover be called upon to reply. Is that the mood of the House? Yes. How do you ascertain that? By voting on it. So, I propose the question that the mover be called upon to reply. I put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. Will those of the same opinion say aye? Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Mover.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I want to laud all the members because, as the country knows, we left here yesterday at midnight. Actually, at 1 p.m. 1 a.m. Actually, today morning, Honorable Speaker. Sometimes we think the day starts at 7 a.m. We actually left here today morning at 1 a.m. And Honorable Speaker, all these members were here by 9:30 a.m. today morning. That is very laudable that we have parliamentarians who have actually given up their lives, Honorable Speaker, to serve our country, Kenya. That in this 13th Parliament, they elected the right people. These people are actually going out of their way to make sure that we serve our Republic of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, I have had many sentiments from all members. Those sentiments are all to enrich the debate around equalization fund. But I also want to bring forth, especially to the member for Isiolo South, that yes, it is good to consider counties that should be capacitated through equalization fund wholesomely, but even quoting Isiolo itself, because I've been there, and the county of Isiolo has got very amazing people. When you come to Isiolo town, it is not, for example, the same as Merti, it's not the same as Garabatura, it is not the same as Kina, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, the formula looks at the pockets because you can get a county that could be deemed as marginalized. Take, for example, Marsabit, but when you go to Moyale as a town, when you go to Saku constituency, that is Marsabit itself, it is not the same as Iraret. It is not the same as North Hall. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, that is the wisdom of zooming into areas that actually need support. Having said that much, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now go on to put the question that the Equalization Fund Appropriation Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2023, be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of a sum of money out of the Equalization Fund and its application towards the service of the year ending 30th June 2023 to appropriate that sum for certain public basic services and for connected purposes.
Honorable members, be upstanding, and the time now being 1:13 p.m. This House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 21st of June, 2023, at 2:30 p.m.